Yeah, welcome to the last talk of the conference. I took the freedom to just do a talk myself. Yeah, maybe about my background. I'm a political scientist and a systems administrator. That's what I learned, actually. I did some marketing at ownCloud, moved to project management. And yeah, I'm really concerned about privacy and open source. To this talk, I will try to present a general picture of how complex and interwoven and opaque data collection and data vendors actually work together today. And I think George Orwell, you all know the book 1984, is not a pattern that you could, that actually describes what's going on. I think it's really worse than that. From my perspective, the representation should be rather sought in a complex and distributed form and decentralized form of surveillance. If you have any questions, please write them down and come to me after the lecture. And I'll start with a small piece of a book that I really enjoy. It was written by Michel Foucault, a famous sociologist of the 70s. And it starts with this. On March 2nd, 1757, Damien was sentenced to apologize publicly in front of the main gate of the Church of Paris, where he was to be driven in a fall cart, naked except for a shirt and burning 2-pound wax torch in his hand. On Greve Square, he was then to be pinched with glowing tongs on the nipples, arms, thighs, and calves of a scaffold erected there. In the fall cart, his right hand should hold the knife with which he had committed the patricide, and should be burned with sulfur fire and melted lead, boiling oil, burning pitch resin, and sulfur melted wax should be poured on the pinched places. Then his body should be pulled apart, dismembered by four horses. His limbs and body should be consumed by the fire and turned into ashes, and his ashes should be scattered into the wind. He was finally quartered, said the Gazette de Amsterdam, and the last operation was very lengthy because the horses used were not used to pulling, so that instead of 4, you had to use 6 of them. And when that was not enough, you had to cut off the thighs of the unfortunate, cut his tendons, and chop his joints. This is what the book starts with. It's maybe not a good night lecture. But the book is called Discipline and Punish, and punishment is a very disciplining individuals, and punishing individuals is super interesting. You might ask yourself, why is there an elephant hanging? This is the elephant Mary, and she was hanged 1916 because she killed her elephant trainer. And in the book, Discipline and Punish of Foucault, he describes the transformation of individual and physical punishment into a system of surveillance. Punishments are not disembodied anymore, and they're not set against the body directly of a delinquent, but rather against the soul, for example, with imprisonment. But it's easier killing people. It's a lot more economic than putting them in jail or putting them in prison. So if you put them in prison and you don't punish the body directly anymore, you got to do something with it. It's the nature of economy. So prisoners are being utilized to become more worthy individuals for the society. The individual itself, in the long run, should become a calculable economic factor. and a prisoner is put to work usually. What we see here is a prisoner in Cuba, and you have a watchtower in the middle, and you have single cells everywhere. And this is actually based on a, whoops. This is based on a model that Jeremy Bentham, a famous philosopher from the 1800s from England, wrote. The Panoptico Principle is a, yeah, you can read it, is a diagram of a mechanism of power reduced to its ideal form. So you have in the middle a watchtower, and the guards in the watchtower are completely anonymous. People in the cells, delinquents, prisoners, have no idea if there's somebody actually in the watchtower. They have no idea if they are being surveilled at any point in time. They know there might be somebody, and there might be some form of punishment to them at some point in time, but they never know, they're never sure. And each of these cells also resembles a form of categorization. And another super interesting part is these individuals in the cells are not able to talk to each other. They're not able to communicate to each other without having the feeling of being surveilled or even being surveilled. I collected some examples of panoptical principles that Michel Foucault described. Very interesting is, for instance, factories. In a factory, you have a shift supervisor, and he supervises the production of the shift. He monitors not every single employee at any time, but he just sometimes checks his work to persuade him to work better, to behave better. And it's enough for him to look over and intervene from time to time. The individual workers usually carry out their work reliably, as they always have to expect to be monitored during the shift, and to be ultimately sanctioned if they do not abide the rules given by the shift supervisor. In early industrial times, for example, there were workers' settlements in Krupp. Krupp was a great German steel factory, and Krupp had settlements for his workers, and the tenants were strictly monitored. Anyone who subscribed to a social democratic newspaper would be dismissed. Krupp, the CEO, demanded peace, order, and discipline in his workers' colony, and he wrote to his administration sometime, "We need a secret police, a control over the workers from their past, from their origin to the present, their relationships, their dealings, their morality, cleanliness, and order. Nothing must be unknown to us, from the man, from the woman, from the children." One can argue today it's different, and we have agile workplaces, but if you look at workplaces, there is some truth to it. You are always being monitored and always controlled. You are reporting to somebody. The military is very clear. Every soldier has his rank. He has in the Panoptical Principle, and in this prison he has his cell. He must follow orders to an ultimately anonymous power, because the orders usually come from the top, and he doesn't know the general or the politician who decides to do this or that. It's just going through the ranks, and it's an anonymous power. He's always supervised, and he's disciplined when he does not obey. If you look at corporations, large companies, not just factories, you have also the thing that you have units, a form of putting people in places. And every employee is ultimately monitored by the management if you follow the line of command, and is checked for compliant behavior. You could also say that about schools and universities. Schools and universities live from segmenting people. Those who have good grades are better students. They might get to do their PhD. As we see here, these Panoptic principles can actually put in every cornerstone of modern societies. Modern societies work with categorizing, with putting people into places. So you might ask yourself, what does that have to do with the internet, open source technology? I show that there's a long history of stuff. And if we look at it now, if you're not paying for the product, you are the product. So we have, I just took some random data collectors, and they provide awesome services. Google does great services, there's no question. Facebook is a great way to be in contact with your friends. Actually, and it's free, yeah, free to use. Instagram, whatever. Payback is a German thing to collect extra points when you buy stuff. These are all data collectors, and they're, well, kind of nice. So what's wrong about them? All of them collect your personal data, and all of them collect your personal and your social interactions. And that's a data set. And what do you regularly do with data? You categorize it. You categorize the people who actually make this data. So you would think, I have nothing to hide, yeah, what's the problem with that? If you spread your data everywhere, you will definitely be targeted with bargains for whatever. Next point would be you have no control over your data. So data that's shared with one of these services is going to be shared probably with any other company or with any other company that makes money out of data categorization. We actually like to point the finger at the NSA and FBI, but, you know, feeling somehow uneasy with it. If you look at Google, Google has much more data than the FBI ever had or ever will have. Facebook's attitude is the opposite of private, because its income depends on the collection of your personal information. Yeah, I have nothing to hide. Just imagine that one day you go outside and there's some guy going through your trash and putting together the letters that you wrote or your tax returns, whatever. Wouldn't you feel uneasy? Eric Schmidt, he was then the CEO of Google, said, if you have something that no one should know, maybe you shouldn't even do it. But if you really need this kind of privacy, the reality is that search engines, including Google, keep this information for some time. And it's important that we're all subject to the Patriot Act in the United States, for example. It is possible that the information will be made available to the authorities. That's one part of it, but the information is going to be made available to anybody who pays for it. It's not just authorities. If we look at it, this information is used to segment and categorize users and target them as accurately as possible with advertisements. The most accurate data records is actually the currency of the internet today. Data is the valuable thing, big data, whatever. And you could argue with all these services, I'm doing an opt-in. I always doing opt-in. So, sorry, you didn't opt in, but Facebook still will target you. They have a profile for you if you browse the wrong website with the Facebook pixel on it, and all the other services do that. Yeah, in the following, I'm going to describe a few data cases. They're going to be a bit scary to a certain point. I don't know if you know Target. Target is a big department store in the US, and what Target did actually is they made advertisements, and someday some dad came in there and he was like, hey, what the heck is going on with you guys at Target? My daughter is still in high school and you're sending her baby vouchers and baby stuff. Do you want to tell me that she's pregnant? What's wrong with you? I don't want you to encourage my daughter to get a child while she's still in high school. So he complained really, really harsh. And the manager followed up with that, and the manager had to come back and say, yeah, sorry, your daughter is pregnant. We found out by targeting your daughter. She bought this and this, and our data scientists could figure out that she's pregnant. And he went home, and his daughter, oh, she's pregnant, yeah. That's a way to tell your dad, huh? I'm pregnant. Patients Like Me is a web forum for people with illnesses, with mental problems, and actually it feels or it tries to give the feeling of a safe haven where I can, if I have a mental illness, I will talk with fellow people who have the same illness. We can chat about different medications, what did work, which psychiatrist is very good or something like that. So there's this guy Mohammed, and Mohammed went there, and he had a bad divorce, and his mom died, and he had a bad time, and he was trying to find other people with the same problem just to interact. So he went there, and they discussed. He wrote down his medication. He wrote down his personal problems. And one day, surprise, he gets an email from Patients Like Me, and it's like, yeah, dude, somebody grabbed all your personal information from our forum. That was in 2010, and it was perfectly legal. By federal law in the USA, this was perfectly legal to grab this information. So Mohammed was a smart guy. He didn't write in clear names. But there's targeting companies who target you, and they try to combine your profiles. So no matter if you write your real name or super hacker 123, they will find out who you are and target you. In this case, the company that took the data is Nielsen. It's a great American data collector advertising company, actually coming from the TV industry. So they took the data and sold it guess to whom would you sell medical data? You sell it to medical companies that provide you with drugs. Yeah. They sold it, and then a couple of weeks later, Mohammed is really, upset, and he takes down his profile and takes everything out, but the data is gone already. It's already sold, so he's being targeted. A couple of weeks later, patients like me, forum admins, realize, oh shit, hey, there's really money in this game. We're just going to change our terms and yeah, we're just going to change our terms, and now we're going to sell the data ourselves. And that's what patients like me did, and yeah, for Mohammed, that was not really cool. So you probably all heard about the Facebook and Cambridge Analytica scandal. All in all, I'll just try to give a small view on it. In 2010, Facebook introduced the Open Graph API, which makes links appear nicer. You have nice photos and featured images and stuff like that. Then Cambridge Analytica started this app. Was it? Yeah. Some psycho tests in Facebook. You can play games on Facebook, you can play Scrabble, whatever, and do psycho tests. They have no quality, actually. These psycho tests are really crap, but if you click on the button, you allow the manufacturer of this app to collect all your personal data. Then in 2014, Facebook was like, oh yeah, that's maybe too much data that we're giving away. I don't think that this was an altruistic move, but a move of, yeah, we actually own the data, we want to make money of it, so why should others do it? So they hardened the rules, but they didn't enforce the deletion of data that was already harvested. Yeah, in 2016, the Trump campaign then targeted Facebook users with the help of Cambridge Analytica, and you could always argue, yeah, I just shared my personal data, but in this case, you shared, if you clicked on the button, all your Facebook friends would, their data would also be in the data pool of Cambridge Analytica. Yeah, you all know in 2018, The Guardian and New York Times exposed the data harvesting of 50 million profiles, and okay, Facebook is promising we're going to be more cool about your data, but let me ask you one thing. So GDPR came here quite soon, I think in May. And what Facebook did was all data that was physically in Europe, they moved it to the US, because data protection laws in the US are obviously more easy. So what I imagine was a reaction of the Facebook data leaks at Google headquarters, just some pimps and criminals laughing their asses off, because compared to Facebook, Google collects incredible amounts of data. Actually, Google won't forget, and they won't delete data. The data that they currently process a day, that they process, not just stored, that they process, is 25 petabytes. Just to get a feeling for that, that would be 25,000 1 terabyte external hard disks. Yeah, Google itself was founded in 1998 by Larry Page and Sergey Brin. And Google itself is crazy. They offer all these really cool tools, you know, Google Maps, YouTube, music, Docs, whatever. And they offer all these free tools, but they don't tell you actually, yeah, we're drug dealers. We're really drug dealers. They're doing a pusher move, yeah, really doing a pusher move, just like the heroin dealer at the main station. Here's something for free. Get hooked, get hooked. You start using the services without being aware that Google is actually using all these services to create the most detailed and perfect data profile of you, to sell that to advertisers in the end. Like I said before, the clearer and perfecter your data profile is that Google can sell, or any other data vendor, the more money they make out of it. And with all these apps interconnected, it gets really crazy. If we look at the history of Google, it started as a search engine, and they started with all these small, nice services. But I think the breaking point was in 2004 when Google introduced Gmail. So Gmail at that time came with, I don't know, if you had a webmail account somewhere, you would have like 25 megabyte of storage or something like that, and Gmail came, yeah, here's 1 gigabyte for free. I remember the drug dealer thing, yeah. And Google actually analyzes your data. They analyze your mail. Google allows companies to read your mail. They say it's just developers. They need to find patterns for whatever. But those people are able to read your mail. So much to Google. In China, there's a new thing. It's called the digital citizenship, and or we call it in the Western world here. In China, the digital citizenship is used to score you. So you have a score, and depending on your if you have contacts to people who might be criticizing the regime, your score will go down. Your rating for creditworthiness at state banks will go down. You won't be able to get to higher education. And of course, they also follow you on your social networks. Every person in China will at some point, they are I don't know at how many people, but they're getting there. Every person has a digital ID, and nice fact about Google, do good things. Yeah, I think 2 weeks ago or something, they said, yeah, we're going to do Google for China. Yeah, really cool. They're doing Google in China, but your search request will be coupled to your digital citizenship ID. So they can check, yeah, did you read newspapers from the outside? Are you in contact with artists or with activists, whatever? Are you following the party's line? And this will have an effect on your scoring. To be honest, a lot of some developers of Google left. They quit after Google announced the China Google search engine. So you might ask yourself, what does this all have to do with Foucault's and Jeremy Bentham's Panopticon? Let's have another look. We see a watchtower in the middle and individual cells all around, and the guard in the watchtower is anonymous. Every inmate can't be sure if he's monitored or not, and he feels exposed to constant surveillance. The inmates are segmented and the communication is monitored at all times. If we now replace a watchtower with a service provider, such as Google, we get these similarities. Yeah, data is used to segment users and achieve desired behavior. Data is actually used to punish users, for instance, with insurance telematics. If you start driving lessons in UK, for example, and you get your first car, you get a black box in your car, and your insurance rates will depend on how well or not well you will ride. You can spin that further. At a certain time, you have your smartwatch on your hand. They could connect to your bank account. Oh, you buy 2 beers a day. Something like that. You smoke, we're going to raise your insurance fees. Yeah, data is used to score individuals, and the biggest thing is, for me, individuals have no transparency over their guards. They don't know who owns their data. Of course, Google owns the data, but they sell it to the most paying. That's how economy, that's how capitalism works. I'm not saying anything bad about capitalism, but every good has a price. And companies, that's the nature of companies, will always sell the good to the highest bidding part. And these data collectors are all interconnected. They sell data everywhere, so I have no control, I have no idea. I think the central watchtower is not the right picture. We have a decentralized surveillance system actually in our digital life. Every service we use, every web page we open actually tracks us, makes us visible, makes us categorizable, and yeah, that's more or less it. I don't have a solution for this. I think it's a dilemma. I think it's very scary, and I don't have a solution for it. Only thing is, be considerate. If it's for free, are you the product then? Data vendors, don't forget, if it's Google, Facebook, whatever, they will use this data to some point to target you or sell it to an authority, whatever. As I said, they're going to sell it to the best, highest bidding party. And if that's a regime, they will do it. Using open source products is a way. Open source products in the regular way are very concerned about privacy tools. They don't want to have a Facebook pixel in your service that you're running. That's one thing to do. But this is actually just a way of it's fighting symptoms. It's actually just fighting symptoms. What I think what we need is a supranational legislation. We need an entity that is at international level that actually takes care of regulation for data protection, data security laws. It's funny, that's the second talk today about where people say, well, we need more regulations. I know a lot of you developers think it's freedom, 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 freedom. But we are not free anymore because we created this decentralized monster of surveillance. And in a globalized world, we need globalized protection and laws. Would be it from me. Do you guys have any questions?
What exactly is the international institution is best suited to
the question was which institution, international institution, would be the best or which I would consider the best. To be honest, I have no idea. I thought about this. Should we put it under the banner of the United Nations? My gut feeling is United Nations. It's complicated, very powerful players that control vast amounts of it. Could it be the World Trade Organization? Yeah. You can criticize the World Trade Organization definitely for a lot of things, but on the other side, they guarantee some kind of framework for dealing internationally with each other. I think that GDPR is a good first start, European data protection law. It's a good first start, but that's not gonna, like I said, Facebook just moved their data to the next state. So we need something that actually rules the world. I don't know if it could be the UN or something else. I have no ideas. It's really an open question, but maybe you have an idea. I think it's also a responsibility. Talk to your local member of parliament and make them aware that this is actually a problem. Any other questions? I think this is it so far.
Okay. John, I just want to thank you for the organization of the full conference here. Great job, John. And I guess my call is for next year, for the ownCloud conference. We'll again on the last week offer hacking or interesting talks maybe on the last day. And then I'm looking for the solutions. Yeah. Less problems, more solutions for next year. Thank you. And any logistics?
Yeah, thank you so far all for attending. I hope you take the opportunity to talk to each other, work on some stuff, chat, drink a coffee, whatever. We still have some books from the D-Punkt Verlag, one of our media partners, and we will arrange some sort of lottery for them. The problem is these books are in German. If any books get left, we donate them to the university here. Yeah, please get in touch with Emil for t-shirts. If you want ownCloud t-shirts and don't have, please get in touch with Emil. He will help you. And so far, thank you everybody for joining. It's been a really great pleasure. I think a great conference for all of us. And see you next year.